Good afternoon and welcome to the latest in our series of live career webinars brought to you by the HOP platform. So HOP, you can see that on the banners behind me, is a website that we hope every student and school in Hertfordshire will be aware of. It stands for the Hertfordshire Opportunities Portal, and it is a website designed for young people who are exploring future career opportunities, specifically within Hertfordshire. So if you're not already aware of it, do have a look at it. You'll see that we've got various social media channels as well. I believe we've also got a TikTok account now as well, so there should be something on there for you. Now, the purpose of these webinars is to give you the opportunity to hear directly from a professional who works in a field or a career that you are interested in learning a little bit more about. So today we are going to be talking about careers in radiography. I've got one panelist with me at the moment, so you can see Casey, who I'll introduce you very shortly. Hopefully her colleague Ben will be with us as well shortly. We've got some technical issues which are probably more at our end than theirs. Hopefully Ben can join us as well, and Casey will tell you all about her career as a radiographer. So just a bit of housekeeping. This webinar will take probably about 45 minutes for us to get through, but you may want to add your own questions in, so you can interact. You can ask Casey, hopefully Ben as well. You can ask them any questions that you've got if you want us to go into a little bit more detail about anything we're talking about, or anything that you're really keen to know. The way that you do that, you haven't got to put your hand up, you haven't got to speak, you just type it in. So on your dashboard, you should see that there is a questions tab. If you click that open, it'll open out a text box. Type your question in there. It'll only be visible to me, and then I can direct that question on. So please do take the opportunity to ask those questions and to have those interactions. The session is being recorded, so if you can't stay till the end of it, it will be available on our YouTube channel from tomorrow onwards, and it will stay on there. If you're watching it and you think, you know, I've got a friend who'd be really interested in this as well, then they can of course watch it back. But by being here live, it means that you've got the opportunity to interact and ask those questions. So before I go on any further, I want to introduce our panelists who's with us at the moment, Casey. So Casey, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. If you'd like to introduce yourself and a little bit about your role and your background, that would be fantastic.
So yeah, hi, my name is Casey. I am a band 6 radiographer, so that means I'm senior now. That's like a step up from when you first qualify. Yeah, so am I telling you about where I work?
Tell us about your background. We'll look at kind of, take us right back to when you were in the shoes of the people that be watching this at the moment. So when you were maybe 15, 16, what were you thinking your future career was going to be, and you know, how did it pan out that you're doing what you're doing today?
Okay, so when I was at school, I actually thought I wanted to work in medical research. So this is my second degree, sorry. So I went to university first and did bioscience, which I absolutely loved what I learned. I really enjoyed the course, but I knew I didn't actually by the end want to work in a lab. I wanted to do something that mixed more with the sciences and also patient interaction. So I spent a few years having a think about what I wanted to do, and then I did some work experience in a hospital. It was actually here in this hospital. So I did some work experience here at Watford and really liked it. So yeah, I then enrolled on the course at Hertfordshire, and that's a 3-year degree programme. It's quite similar, if anyone knows anything about the nursing courses. A lot of the healthcare courses are very similar. 3 years long is a standard route, although you can now, if you've already got a degree, you can do a master's, but you couldn't at my point. So I did the full 3-year undergraduate degree, and then I started here at Watford. When you first start as a band 5 radiographer, I'll tell you what obviously a radiographer is. So we are the healthcare practitioners that deal with medical imaging. So if you ever come to the hospital for an X-ray, MRI scans, CT scans, ultrasound, although you can kind of have another route into ultrasound, but generally speaking, any kind of medical imaging, it's the radiography degree that gets you there. So yeah, sure. That's how I got into it.
Okay, brilliant. I mean, first of all, because I made this mistake already, what's the difference between a radiography and radiology, and in fact any other related radio prefix?
So radiology is the modality, is the overarching departmental name. So we are the radiology department. Radiographers, so radiographer, the end of that radiographer is the people that take it. So we are the people that acquire the images. The radiologists are the same as any kind of oncologist, dermatologist. They are doctors in the field of radiology. So they'll do their standard medical training, and then they'll pick radiology as their specialism. So yeah, the entry route's very, very different, and our jobs are very different. Although radiology is such an integral department in healthcare. So almost all patients that come into hospital or go and see the GP for most things will have some kind of imaging. All of our patients that go into A&E, if they've hurt themselves or if they're unwell, they'll use some kind of imaging to work out what's going on, which means that we are a really rapidly growing profession, and we are very important, and we are also very understaffed, which means that there is now more and more scope for radiographers, so not doctors, to fulfill doctors' roles. So classically, radiographers would take the images and the radiologists would produce the written report to go with the images. They would be the ones to interpret the images. Whereas now, in specific elements, we can do additional postgraduate training, so like master's level, and actually we can bridge the gap in little elements, so we become mini radiologists for those things, but we're still not. You just become an advanced practitioner, not a doctor.
Sure. Okay. Well, thanks for filling in the gaps there for me. Anyway, that's really useful. Tell us. I mean, in your bio that you opened, you were explaining the sort of range of different things that you do within a hospital, and I mean, you were saying you told me the sort of 12-hour shift. So talk us through. I'm going to say an average day. You're going to tell me that no 2 days are the same. But what does today look like for you? Bar coming on this webinar for us this afternoon, Casey. What would you expect to do from the point you wake up and get into work?
So I think I am now in a more specialist role. So I'll do a standard day as a kind of a standard radiographer when you qualify. So during the degree program, you'll have lots of training in taking plain film X-ray. So if anyone ever breaks their ankle or whatever and comes in, the chest X-rays, the extremities. So we work in X-ray, and we also work in CT here. So a day might look like you come in and in the morning you'll be rotated to A&E X-ray, dealing with whatever comes in the door there, and then you may have after lunch you might end up going to CT, dealing with our inpatient and A&E patients, so lots of acute work. And then after 5 you might end up switching again and then going to work in theatre. So a big thing when you first qualify is that we if anyone's ever having any theatre, especially orthopedics, they will use X-ray to guide in their screws. They haven't got X-ray vision, so they don't know where they're going, so it will be us that take the pictures and they can work out then if they're in the right place or not. So I think when you first qualify as a radiographer, that's kind of your bread and butter areas, really. Plain film, maybe some CT, especially here we're really big on CT because we have so many scanners, and definitely theatre. For me now, slightly different. So I'm in more of a specialist role, which means that beyond, I've done some additional training and I'm now an interventional radiographer, and it's kind of like plumbing, I think. So interventional is where we use X-rays to actually do something where we fix the problem. It's not just diagnostic anymore. We're not just letting the clinicians that have asked for the X-ray or whatever, we're not just letting them know what's wrong. We're now using X-ray to go in and fix the issue. So things like if anyone has any blocked arteries, and all the issues that come with that, they'll come to us and we then use X-ray to guide wires in, and then we'll then open up the arteries using balloons and stents and all kinds of fun stuff, which then fixes them. And so again, it's the radiologists mainly that do those procedures, but it's us, the radiographers, that drive the equipment for them. So I do much more of that now.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, you said you're at Watford General Hospital. Do all radiographers, are they always situated in a hospital only, or might there be other health settings that you'd go into?
No. So it's really it's just in a hospital usually. There may be kind of outpatient imaging centres. So there are places that aren't a hospital, but actually they'll have all the equipment that we use here, and it will just be a specific imaging centre. But generally speaking, because we have so much kit, and because our machines are quite expensive, and there's lots of legislation around making sure that radiation is safe. So lead-lined rooms and things like that, it wouldn't be practical really to have radiographers outside of a purpose-built unit, and generally speaking you find them in hospitals.
Okay, so how reactive are you as a team? So will you sort of start your shift at the start of the day and you know that I'm going to be here for a couple of hours, then we're going there, or are you purely reactive to what's coming into sort of A&E and what's happening in the hospital at any one point?
No, we kind of have like the powers that be. So my bosses will look at where there was, for a start, there's a minimum amount of staff that you need in an area. So to run an MRI scanner, you generally need 3 radiographers. To run a CT scanner, at least 2, ideally 3. So we have staffing levels that you need. However, if it's really busy somewhere, you might find that actually they'll pull you and put you somewhere else. Or if someone goes sick. I mean, here at West Hart, we don't just work here at Watford, we have 3 sites. And although the nurses and other practitioners might just work on one ward in the hospital, we work across all 3. So you might find that on a Monday you're in Watford, Tuesday St Albans, Wednesday Hemel, which is, on the one hand, it's really good because it means that lots of variety, but it can mean that for staffing, if someone goes sick in Hemel, we might have to come across from Watford, which can be a bit of a pain, but
sure, yeah,
keeps things interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know, just for wider context, as people will be watching this from around the county. So what you're describing in West Herts, there'll be similar operations in place up in the East and North Herts Trust between Lister and Stevenage and QE and
Lister,
Princess Alexandra in Harlow.
So yeah, Lister and the QE too. Yeah, so I think most radiographers that work in a trust that has more than one hospital will rotate around different sites. That's quite a radiographer thing. Yeah, it's rare to work in a trust with more than one hospital where you only work in the one hospital as a radiographer.
Yeah, no, okay. Now, we've spoken earlier about the 12-hour shifts that you do. How do your shift patterns work?
So every trust is very different with how they work their shifts. The problem in radiology is that, so the nurses or other healthcare practitioners might just have a set long day, 12.5-hour day, and it might start at 8 in the morning and finish at 8 in the evening, might start at 11:30 and finish at 11:30, and a night shift is usually kind of 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. But the issue we have in radiology is that we have lots of different services open at different times. So for instance, general x-ray will finish at 5, but A&E never closes. We never ever leave A&E. So because of that, we have a really mad shift pattern, and I think most radiographers on cross-site working also have something similar. So we have a short day, which is 8 to 5. You have a normal day, which is 8 to 8:30. We have a twilight shift, which is 11:30 to midnight. And we have a night shift, which is 8 p.m. to 8:30 a.m. And there is a pattern to it, but it's quite complicated and it's different. So Lister have a very different pattern to how we do. Our pattern here is kind of 2 weeks of working with 1 or 2 days off, but then you get a week off. Okay. But I don't think they have that at other places. So it depends where you work, and I think if you are looking into studying or when you qualify, that's a really good question to ask in interview. What will my working pattern be? Yeah, I mean, presumably you've got friends and family members who have, I'm going to say, normal shift patterns where they largely work sort of Monday to Friday during the daytime. How do you balance that work-life balance with those sorts of shifts that you have? It is really tough. I can't lie. I think that is one of the things about working in healthcare, especially now, because it's very busy in healthcare. Your day is full on, and balancing work and life is quite tough. I am about to go 9 to 5 because I've got a specialist role now, which is only open until 5 p.m. 6 p.m. I think you have to be quite organized. And I think a good thing actually though is that you tend to work with people who are really in the same boat as you, so we're quite good at swapping if there's something you really want to go to, but you do have to be quite forward thinking with your annual leave and what days you want off and what swaps you want to do. And although it is tough, and I think you might miss a Tuesday, Wednesday night dinners. I think they are the things that you do tend to get to go to less of. But I've never missed anything major. I've never missed a wedding, or I've never, and you get lots of time off in the day on your own, which means you can do, your washing whenever you want, which for me is really important. You can catch up on life admin, and you make good friends with people from work. A lot of my favourite people are from here, which means that, and we have loads of time off together. So swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I mean, you've talked very nicely around the sort of two main holder questions that I always ask in this section, which is, what are the best things about the job that you'd want someone at school to know about to inspire them, and also what are the more challenging things? Are there anything else, I guess, from either of those questions that you feel it's worth pulling out at the moment? So some of the really good things about a career as a radiographer, and perhaps some of those more challenging things that people may not be aware of.
Yeah, I think one of the really good things is that your every day is so different. I think because we work with some amazing equipment, the technology is amazing, and it's only getting better, which means I get to play with some really cool kit. And some of the things we can do in radiology is mind-blowing. I won't go into the physics and stuff but the things we can end up doing with it are amazing. So I think it's a really cool job. I'm obviously biased, but it's a really cool job, and it's a really good mix, I think, of working with all these technologies and also patient care. And you see a new patient like every 20 minutes, so it's just a really fun, fast-paced day, and you can have a lot of fun with it. I think one of the biggest challenges is probably that at the moment, because we are so integral to healthcare, and we're at a point now where I think doctors always want to do imaging before they make any diagnosis now. So we are incredibly busy, and there aren't enough of us. And I think that can mean that you are just that busy, fun pace sometimes when the day isn't going to plan can be really tough. It can be really hard work. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the worst things, that sometimes our working conditions in the day can be quite hectic.
Sure. Okay, but it sounds like you can offset that against all the benefits and really nice things about the job that you've already spoken about. I want to talk a little bit now about the routes to go into radiography. So can you just remind us? So what A levels did you do, and just remind us again what you then did when you went to university?
So when I did my A levels, what did I do? I did biology, I did English, lit, and I did, what else did I do? I did something sportsy. I can't remember. It's a while ago. Sorry, everyone. But my route into radiography was slightly different, because I then did the bioscience degree, which then meant I walked on to the radiography degree because I already had a degree.
Yeah.
So I think you need your science, I think, and I think other than that with radiography, I'm not sure. I think they're also offering now apprenticeship programs. So for people who want to come and work, obviously, and then train, and you still get the full degree by doing that. So that's really good, and that's a really good option. But yeah, I think you do need your science, I think.
Sure. Okay. Well, I did a bit of research beforehand. So to look at the diagnostic radiography and imaging degree at University of Hertfordshire, which is an undergraduate course, you'd need a minimum of 120 UCAS points, with a minimum of BBB, or from a science-based subject, which sounds like that was probably your criteria as well. So, I mean, Casey, if you were going back now, if you were going back to I don't know, end of year 11, say, which do you think would be your preferred route? Do you think you would go in via a degree apprenticeship, or would you go in through the full degree route?
Tough. I think if you can get an apprenticeship placement. If you can do that, I think it's good, because obviously you're going to be earning money, which is always good. And I think you get a lot of for our job, I think some of the best experience you get is actually from being on your placements. For the NHS courses, you spend half the year on placement anyway, and that is quite intense. And you don't spend as long as some of the other non-healthcare courses on summer breaks. So we work for more of the year. But I think, yeah, if you could get an apprenticeship placement, I definitely think that's really worth investigating, because at the end you get the same degree no matter what, and it means I think you spend more time on clinical. But either or, you know, if you want to do the full university experience too and go through the uni route, then it's fine.
Absolutely. I dare say people watching this at the moment may well have some questions or some sort of tips they want on which subjects to choose or whether to go to university. Now, you probably see here that Ben has appeared on our screen now, which is great. Just want to make sure that Ben's got full volume, full audio functionality at the moment. So, Ben, if you are able to unmute yourself, yes, looks like you are. Ben, good afternoon.
Hi, sorry, I was lots of technical issues. I don't know why, but there we go. I'm here now.
There you go, and we're delighted to have you. I mean, Casey's already done a great job of explaining what a radiographer does and what a great career it is. But Ben, do you just want to give us a little bit of background as to what you've done in your route into your career?
Yes, so I did the university course as well at Hertfordshire, and then directly went into work for West Herts, and have been there for 8-9 years now, and probably similar. I don't know what, obviously didn't hear what Katie said, but we are now working very closely together. So we're both leading, well, I lead the interventional team as such, which is a really specialist part of radiology. So you start off as a radiographer that goes around the different departments and helps out in all different areas. But we've both happened to stumble into the same speciality, and now we work. Well, as of September, we will be working very closely together on our new IR suite, which is appearing in October. Touch wood, hopefully. But yeah, that's how I got into it. I was originally going to be a physio. That was where I was really wanting to go to, but the course that when I looked into it, so I was particularly reasonably good at physics when I was at school, and sort of mashed the two together and ended up with radiography. So that's how I stumbled into radiography as such.
Sure. I mean, you said that physiotherapy was maybe your first career aspiration, or your one previous to radiography. Had you ever heard of radiography when you were finishing school?
No, not really. Until my sort of final year doing A levels, I hadn't even considered it as a pathway that I would ever consider. Yeah, it was always kind of either being a physio or a PE teacher, or sort of that side of really being it. But yeah, just to happen to be particularly good at physics and sort of smashed it all together and ended up with radiography. Particularly as I didn't want an office job. I didn't want anything that I was going to be really sat just behind a desk. This is very much a active role that you take on. It's a lot more sort of interaction with patients, and we get to use some very expensive gadgets that allow us to take some very detailed images of the body.
Sure. Okay. So we just covered the sorts of qualifications or courses you might do, or the different routes in there. So it's really great to hear that there's a degree apprenticeship course as well as sort of the standard undergraduate university course as well. But Ben, what sorts of skills and qualities or sort of personal attributes does a really good radiographer does? Now both of you have alluded to how sort of curious you are around technology and using technology, but what are the sort of other skills and qualities that you think you and your team have in abundance?
So you have to be practical. You have to be able to be sort of more able to do things rather than sort of be able to use the ability to adapt with lots of different technology to get those images. But a lot of it is the patient interaction. So if you're good with your communication skills, you're good with empathy to be able to almost put yourself in the situation of your patient, and you can really give the best care that we attempt to give every single day. I don't know, Casey, you've got anything else that we particularly are good at?
No, I think you've got to kind of think on your feet. It's a really fast-paced environment, and quite often things don't go to plan. That's just the nature of healthcare, I think. So you have to quite often adapt and kind of be willing to think outside the box, and just roll with what the day gives, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really prime example of that is we had a fire alarm go off today, and we all had to become somewhat fire officers and deal with patients, trying to get them out of the hospital and trying to deal with the difficulties of a fire going on around the hospital. So, which is all part of the fun of working.
I see. Yeah, absolutely. So look, I mean, question we often get asked. I'm sure every student watching this at the moment would love to be able to go and do a formal work experience, and for various logistical reasons, I guess that's never going to be possible to satisfy demand for that. But are there any other experiences that you would recommend people getting that would maybe help them? I mean, again, we've alluded to that. Will around to use technology and to be curious around that. Would that be a good starting point if you can't sort of get into a radiography department at university or in a hospital?
I think that's quite tough. I think we have such specialist equipment that I don't think anyone expects you to have much of an idea really before you start these courses. I think more than anything, universities are more interested in the care element of the course. So they do expect you, or at least they did when we were studying, to have done, number one, some kind of work experience in hospital. So we do have some volunteers and stuff here. So just showing the willing to come and spend a few days, and then actually at interview having something to say about what you enjoyed or what you saw, about caring, because at the end of the day, yes, our job is fun and we get to play with this equipment, but actually patient care and patient outcomes is the most important part of our job. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I also think that in terms of going down into any healthcare profession, making sure that that's one of the biggest things to make sure that you want to do. I think it can be quite tough. You can see some sad things. I think in healthcare we're really stretched, and sometimes the conditions that we work in are quite tough. And I think actually that's a really good thing before you do go into a job or commit yourself to a course like this, that you make sure that you do want to work in healthcare and that you're able for the things that the day could throw at you. So I think volunteering in a hospital or care home or something.
Sure.
Yeah, do a little bit of research around what each of these different disciplines does. So if you want to be a nutritionist, or you want to be a physio, a radiographer, there's lots of different pathways that you can go into healthcare. But do know what you're applying for, because I say a friend, he was only on the course for about 4 days because he thought he was getting into being on the radio, and then decided that this wasn't being on the radio and wasn't anything to do with what he actually wanted to do. So yeah, just know exactly sort of what you're actually applying for.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great lesson in life, isn't it? I think, Ben, let alone into careers in this field. And so we spoke about university courses. I gave you an example of a course at University of Hertfordshire. There will be lots of similar university courses available around the country. Some of you might want to stay in Hertfordshire. Some of you the university and UCAS perspectives, because they will all be slightly different in what they offer. There we go. I think there's a problem at my end that time. So sorry. There we go. We're back in.
We thought we were flying solo then.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I was going to hand it over to you. Well, talk about being on the radio. Perhaps some broadcasting skills there would have come in handy. But anyway, Fortunately not. So we just say, yeah, whatever university course it is you're doing, you do have a look, read through that perspective, kind of read the small print on there, because each course may ask for something slightly different in terms of what they want. Now, Casey, you answered this question earlier, really, because you were saying that there's huge demand for radiographers, and I'm going to assume by default that is specifically within Hertfordshire as well. You know, why is that demand for radiographers? Are people leaving? Are people sort of retiring and they need to sort of backfill those, or is there just more demand for the work?
So I think obviously the NHS has been cut quite a lot. I think we haven't spent enough investing in recruitment for a long time. I think there are huge gaps across healthcare. So obviously there's a huge shortage of nurses, the same with us. I also think that one of the biggest reasons that we're so short is because we are so integral. Like 95% of patients that come through the doors have some kind of imaging, and obviously the population's growing. I think as well, as healthcare advances and we've realised how important timely intervention is in treating patients, it means that we know that we have 2 weeks sometimes to get someone in for something to make a maximum impact and produce the best outcomes for them, which then means that we have lots of targets to get patients in really quickly. So I think that in itself means that because we're so important and because time is so important and we are short, it just means that radiography is a very in-demand profession.
Sure, okay, well, that's good. So, Ben, I mean, the follow-up question, so I've had some questions in from the audience, so I'm going to come on to those very shortly. So thank you. If you do have any questions you want to ask Ben or Casey, do type them in. So we've had one come in already. Kind of final one from me, though, just to close off this section, Ben. What other careers might someone go into if they're in radiography? Now, obviously, I'm not on behalf of NHS, not wanting you and Casey to go move on to other things, but what naturally might someone within radiography go on to do?
Is Ben gone?
Has
Ben dropped off?
Yeah, well, I'll ask you that question, Casey. He's obviously driving through West Hertfordshire somewhere, as we could see, and he may have hit a black hole. But go on, so yeah, take that question on for us.
So you tend to just specialise. So again, plugging that gap between radiographers and radiologists, if you're going to go into another area of healthcare, you would have to retrain. So we have got a colleague who has just left to become a paramedic. Oh, Ben's back. We have got a colleague who has just left to become a paramedic, and she had to do, now that a lot of the universities are offering masters for someone who's already got a degree in healthcare or sciences, so she did the master's course to become a paramedic, but she did have to do a whole nother healthcare program. Generally speaking, the natural progression for us as radiographers is to do postgraduate courses in a specialist area and then just progress through radiography. So you are kind of a standard radiographer, and then you can be an enhanced practitioner, which is what myself and Ben are now. You then do your full masters in something and you become an advanced practitioner, and then it's consultant radiographer. But generally speaking, the natural progression in radiography is to just get higher as a radiographer, not really branch out too much.
Sure, okay. Ben, I mean, is that the same for you? Would you give the same answer to that? It's just, what are the natural progression routes from radiography?
So there is also a few different areas you can go into, which is sort of the management side as well, that comes away from clinical. So you can go off a management route, which allows you to go across and lead departments rather than be clinical. There are other applications, so you can do sort of veterinary radiography. Again, you may have to do another course slightly to add on, but there are external sort of out of the NHS completely where you can go, and there's lots of people are generally, or you get a lot of people attracted to doing sort of sonography and things like that, which goes across again, and that's another master's that they do to enhance and expand the practice that they're able to do. But yeah, there are other little sort of routes that you can go down that aren't just clinically based.
Sure, and then equally, you can get into radiography from perhaps other areas as well. As you, I know you both started with different interests, but do you find, for instance, would you find many qualified physiotherapists who would then later in life decide they were going to go into radiography, Ben, or?
So not many physios or as such, but they have just started this year a master's course. So there are people that have done previous degrees that are now converting, and that only takes 2 years. So they've sped up the process a little bit to give them the initiative to get the degree and get them working a bit faster than the undergraduate course.
Sure. Okay, brilliant. Well, look, I'm going to hand over to the questions now that we've had submitted. It's not too late. If you've got a question, if you're watching this live, you want to ask anything, please put your questions in now. If you specifically want it to go to Casey or Ben, just put their name at the front of it, then I'll send it to them. Otherwise, I'll just ask both of them. So the first question is, can I do radiography with health and social care level 3 qualification? I don't have science GCSE, but I do have a BTEC level 2 science and grades 4 in English and maths. So, Casey, that's obviously a very specific question, but what would your advice generally be around if you haven't got science GCSE? Is that something you know the answer to?
So I think I'm not sure between GCSE and A level, but I know there are some access routes. I think you can take like a year before you do the radiography degree. I think there is a foundation year that you can do, or you could do when I was studying. So I think that could be an option for someone who potentially hasn't quite. Ben's giving me a thumbs up. So yeah, I think there is a foundation year that you can do if you haven't quite got the grades or the courses that they would ask you as prerequisites, and they offer that at Hearts.
Sure.
I don't think that the science is such an issue. It's usually the English and maths. So if you haven't got English and maths so I'm going to say a C, so I don't know what number that is. I'm too old for that now. But whatever a C is, then the access course and the foundation year is available. They do still run that as part of it. So it would take you 4 years to get your degree, but it is a way into getting yourself onto this course anyway.
Sure. Okay. And then, I mean, you spoke earlier, Casey, about that importance of patient care. So as much as it's around the radiography and using quite complex technology, actually being able to manage and to deal with patients is important. So I'm guessing that health and social care, there would be some good things you could take from that as well, some good things you'd learn from that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you are applying for healthcare courses, although your grades are not your grades, but although it's a degree program, so I think the people that or the institutions that offer the program want to make sure that you can keep up with the course load. But actually, when you're having your interviews, they really do want you to show and demonstrate that you're interested in patient well-being. So I think if you were to do the foundation part just to get onto the course, but I'm sure that the tutors would love the fact that you have got that kind of background, because it shows that you're interested in patient care, for sure.
Sure. Okay, great. Next question. What type of technology is used in radiography? So, Ben, let me come to you first. Can you just give us some examples of some of the technology and perhaps tell us your favourite piece of technology that you like using?
Jeez, that is a massive question. So every single modality, which is a different form of imaging, will have a completely different setup to be able to get the best images possible. So there's MRI, there's CT, there's ultrasound, there's fluoroscopy, there's nuclear medicine, there is all sorts of different theatre work that we do. I personally have to say that it's the fluoro side of it, because that's the bit that I work in every day. And they are currently spending £2.5 million on a new suite for us. So that gives you a scope of how much money is going into this technology and how much it is that the gadgets that we can play with and get those images for the patients.
Sure. Okay. And Katie, similar question for you. I don't want to. It's not my place to trivialise it, but are there any gadgets that you've used today that you really enjoy using?
So obviously, I'm also probably have the same biases as Ben, and I also work in fluoro. I think CT is quite fun. I think it's really fast paced. You can get the images really quickly, and I think that once you have an understanding of the physics, I mean, very, very clever people, you know, worked out how this works. And when you have an understanding that actually so we give something called contrast, which is a dye we use to highlight the blood vessels, and someone very intelligent at some point has worked out that if you take the pictures after certain intervals after giving the dye, it'll travel to certain parts of your body. So if you want to look at someone's arteries, you'd scan really quickly after giving the dye. Whereas if you're kind of looking at it in general brain tissue, you might wait 3-5 minutes. And so I love working in CT too, because it is so clever what we can do, and the things that we can see, the pathologies that we can see by making these small changes. So it is, I think CT is also really good fun.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to combine these two questions. They're largely the same. But as I'm reading this out, maybe Ben and Casey, just consider if you were talking to your 16-year-old self, how would you answer this question? So, what would be the best subjects to study for radiography? And then equally, what A levels will I need to be a radiographer? So it's a kind of similar. So Ben, you're talking to your 16-year-old self here. You're about to choose your A levels you're going to do, knowing what you know now, knowing that this is the career you want to go into. What would you pick?
So it's not essential. There isn't an essential subject, but if you have a liking to physics, it does help quite a lot, because it gives you a really good grounding to understand all of the kind of technical side of what we do. So if you have any interest in physics, I'd probably direct you that way. Otherwise, sort of a biology or like an anatomy or a PE sort of like tech
Ben.
I think Ben might just be going through a tunnel. So let me bring
get the knowledge and of the body and the anatomy of the body. That's just going to get you
Sure. Okay. Casey, let me ask. Let me just mute Ben. Obviously, but you won't know that we can't hear her. Casey, again, I mean, your A levels are so memorable, you can't remember what the third one was. But tell us, if you were going back again, talking to your 16-year-old self, what A levels would you pick now?
Yeah, I think ideally to make the course as easy as possible, because you already have a load of background knowledge. I think so physics, if you have a good grasp of physics, then the degree will be so much easier for you. If you could do like biology or human biology, then that'll be great. And I think, yeah, something like PE, if you can, just because I know that you do quite a lot of physiology and stuff there, I think, or even English, because you have to do obviously a lot of, if you do English language, you have to have kind of a lot of academic writing anyway when you're at university. So I think nothing, Ben's right, nothing is essential, but I think to make life easier for yourself, physics, human biology or biology, and maybe English or PE.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Hope that answers your questions. Here we go. This one's related. Just come in. I have an A grade in health and social care. Do I still have a chance to get onto a radiography course? I really wanted to get into this career, but I don't know how and which way can I get into the radiography apprenticeship? I don't know who wants to have a go answering that one. Casey, go on. You have the apprenticeship.
Yeah, I think the apprenticeships are tricky because I think you need to find an employer who's willing to obviously pay for you to do the apprenticeship. So I know that a lot of our assistants here, so we have radiology assistants, which are integral to the running of the department, and they are usually people who haven't got the radiography degree background, but quite often a lot of our, they're called RDAs, a lot of them work in the department for a year or two. They know so much, they learn so much, and then once they're employed by the trust and they've been there a couple of years, they then apply to do the apprenticeship program. So we've got a couple of our RDAs who are going through the apprenticeship program now, and they have like 5 years worth of working here and know everything already. So that's obviously one option, and it means they're never not earning. You know, they haven't got to do the student thing. as such.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really pleased that you said that, Case. That's a really good point. And I think sometimes, particularly when you're at school or about to leave school, you maybe can't see that bigger picture and just playing the long game. So something like that you've mentioned there, to go in and be that assistant and to get that real first-hand knowledge about whether this is good for you, will probably be really good for a lot of people. So hopefully that will help. Ben, does the radiography course, so I'm assuming this means radiography as a degree course, content contain a large amount of physics, and would there be a balanced amount of biology content compared to the physics content?
I hope you can hear me. Yes, so it does. It has a module each year of physics, and then there is a wider variety of modules that you then do. So anatomy modules, there's a radiographic practice module, which is more to do with sort of justification for examinations. And then there's a spell that you spend in the hospital, and you do clinical examinations, and you get assessed by current radiographers on what you're doing and how you're performing the actual procedures and examinations that you're required to do as a radiographer. But there is a module of physics and a module of anatomy that you have to do each year.
Sure. Okay. And then I think this is probably the final question that we've got, which is
just before you do.
Oh, sorry, Ben, go on.
It's not as hard as it sounds. If you don't like physics, you will still get through it. I just happen to like physics, and I was good at that bit. But lots and lots of radiographers that I work with now, they really didn't like physics as they got to the course, and they got through it, and it wasn't as difficult as maybe I've made it sound. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that when you approach maybe subjects as a university student, then you will see them in a slightly different way to how you saw them at, even at GCSE or A level. So it's worth considering. Could I specialise in sonography straight after an undergraduate radiography course, or did I need to work as a radiographer for a few years before this? Katie, I think you brought up sonography earlier, so you want to try and answer that one?
So it depends. So usually to be a sonographer, you have to do additional formal training. So you continue your studies, and that has a cost implication. I also think you're taught so much as a radiographer that it's really good to use those skills in the field that you've been taught first. So the most common thing to do is usually start working for a trust, get to grips with all of the radiography that you've been taught for 3 years that you want to use, kind of put into practice, and then after that, after a couple of years, you'll usually apply to kind of get some extra funding, and then the trust that you're at will pay for you to do your postgraduate studies, and then once you've finished that, you then become a sonographer. But it also means that a lot of our sonographers can also come and do a bit of x-ray for a day if they want to, so it means that you still get to use everything, whereas if you jump straight into being a sonographer, I think you'd miss out on all of the other modalities.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to well, Ben looks like he's in a tunnel, A, because it's dark outside, and B, because he's frozen as well. So there you go, he's come back now. I think that's the final question that we've had submitted into us. So thank you for those questions that you've had in. Just as we round off, any of you that are watching this live at the moment, oh, there we go, there's another question that just come in, just over the line. Why is it so hard to get a job or volunteering in radiography? Ben, do you want to pick up that one?
Yeah, it's essentially volunteer-wise, it is quite difficult because you need an honorary contract. So because of the patient confidentiality and the nature of what we do, you do need a contract with a hospital to be able to come and volunteer, which is the stumbling block a little bit to be able to just come in. It used to be a little bit easier. It used to be that we could organise it as a department, but they've changed the rules slightly to make it a little bit more official and a little bit more that you can see a lot more than you used to be able to. If you need help with that, most hospital sites will have what's that called? A future inspiration team, I think is what our title is now. And they can organise you a honorary contract and be able to then allow you into the hospital for longer than what we used to do. So we used to offer only come in for, but we can do however long as you want.
Sure. Okay. Right, on the screen at the moment, I've put up a couple of websites that may be of interest to people. So one is the NHS Careers website, and if you haven't looked at that one, do have a look into it. I mean, it's fantastic. It covers, I think, about 350 different career titles within the NHS, of which, of course, radiographer will definitely be one of them. So do familiarise yourself with that one. I've also gone on a bit of a limb there, and the Society of Radiographers might be a decent website to have a look at as well. Casey, are there any other? I mean, there might be TV shows, books, podcasts, anything else that you would direct people to if they wanted to find out a little bit more about what a radiographer does?
I think probably the Society are probably one of the best ones. So they are they're our union, and I think that, yeah, they have a lot on there. I think I'm not sure about anything specific. Maybe I'm sure there are some radiographers who do like a day in the life of on YouTube and stuff. And I know that if you go on the University of Hertfordshire website, I think some of the radiographers here at this trust did a bit of a day in the life of, and they actually showed some of the rooms that we work in. So I think there might be some videos from UOH of the lovely Watford.
Absolutely, yes. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, Ben, any other sort of sites or anything I should signpost anyone towards?
No, Casey's exactly right. If you haven't had enough of me, I'm on the university bit. So one of them is me. So if you haven't had enough of me already, there's a video of me doing some dentals, I think, which I have no idea how to do anymore. But yeah, there's a video on there, I think. Otherwise, it's probably just on the university websites. Go on and have a look at the course makeup, and that will give you quite a lot of information of what we do anyway. So then the course is widespread now. So if you want to find it in a certain location, it probably is available.
Sure. Okay, thank you. So I didn't realise that we were literally hearing from the face of radiography in Hertfordshire today. We're very grateful to have had Ben and Casey here with us today. Thank you for persevering around the technology issues that we've had, or that you've had. Really enjoyed hearing from you. So insightful. I'm sure everyone watching this at the moment has found it very, very informative, and you've been great advocates for radiography in Hertfordshire as well. So thank you to the pair of you for coming in and joining us and giving up your time today. We know how precious your time is. Just for anyone watching this at the moment, on your screen at the moment, again, just a reminder of our HOP website, so do familiarise yourself with it. Do have a look at our social media handles. The webinar we've done today is one of, I think, about 74 that we've done over the last 3 years. So we cover different careers every time, so do have a look at that QR code in the top. Do share it with your family and friends as well. There's something on there for everyone. I guarantee that everyone who looks at that will find a career that they're interested in. It could be anything from being a lawyer to being in cabin crew. There's something for everyone on this, so do have a look at it. We wish everyone the very, very best for your future careers. For those of you that are getting perhaps GCSE results or A-level results this summer, I hope they work out really, really well for you. Best of luck, and hopefully we've got our next generation of radiographers who maybe will join us and be in Casey and Ben's shoes in a few years' time. So thank you very much and have a very pleasant evening.
Thanks, bye.